by the First Solar Community Giving Fund of the Greater Toledo Community Foundation and the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. Erie Hack is supported by OHM Advisors, Connecticut, Case Western Reserve University's Leonard Gelfand STEM Center, the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo, Cleveland Metro Parks, the Watershed Stewardship Center, the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation, the Rotary Club of Toledo, and the University at Buffalo Sustainability Office. We know that collaboration is key, and we are stronger when we work together to solve our Great Lakes' greatest challenges. This unique event would not be possible without our sponsors and partners. We're immensely grateful for your continued and truly valuable support. Thank you for seeing the value of our lake, that it's worth our time, our resources, and our investments to build sustainable, equitable, thriving ecosystems and communities throughout the Great Lakes region. At this time, to get us started, it is my great honor to introduce Cleveland's new mayor-elect, Justin Bibb, to deliver a few opening remarks. Mayor-elect Bibb.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you to the entire coalition for hosting this important event. I remember being a part of my first hackathon with Hack Cleveland about 6 years ago, and I know that events like this go truly a long way to really looking at different problems and solutions across our city. Look, as you know, we talk a lot about Cleveland being a green city on a blue lake, and the work you're doing today is going to help us truly make that goal a reality. I believe Lake Erie is a major asset for innovation, for workforce development, and also it's a major asset for us to truly make Cleveland a globally competitive city in the future. And the work you're going to do today is a big part of making that goal a reality. So again, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to working with you as the mayor of Cleveland. I'm looking forward to getting your ideas as well as we move our community and our lake forward across our respective region. Thanks so much, guys.
All right, well, thank you so much, Mayor-elect Bibb, and congratulations again. Just to continue on here, since 2017, Erie Hack has cultivated and accelerated exciting ideas, forged lasting partnerships, and driven the conversation around the value of our precious freshwater resource. It has fortified a powerful innovation ecosystem throughout the Lake Erie Basin that promises ecological and economic advancement for all of our communities. Now, after months of meetups, hacking days, virtual pitching events across the region, we're excited to have reached the final round of the third iteration of Erie Hack, where just six teams remain. Today, a total of over $60,000 of funding and support services are going to be awarded amongst competing teams to develop their innovations and further their positive impact in the Great Lakes region and beyond. So right now, we thought we'd take a minute to meet the folks who are going to determine which teams will be awarded those prizes, our esteemed judging panel. So judges, at this time, we ask that you please turn on your cameras to be acknowledged as I run through your names here one by one. And we'll begin with Chris Anderson, the president and founder of the C.J. Anderson Company. So there's Chris. Also want to welcome Tiffany Jordan, contract compliance manager for Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. Also here today, Alexis Carter, board of directors for Organic Connects. Additionally, Jess Moyer is here, the program manager for water equity with Xylem. Additionally, Angelique Salazan she is the Ohio Policy and Outreach Manager for Alliance for the Great Lakes. Also very lucky today to have Priscilla Deem with us, the Technology Manager and Partnership Specialist for NASA's Glenn Research Center. And finally, Akbar Tyler, Director of Training and Healthy Homes for Environmental Health Watch. So we thank and welcome all of our great judges here. Thanks again to all of our judges, our partners, our sponsors. These folks are generously donating their time and resources to be a part of Erie Hack and to further necessary and urgent water innovation. Now, without further ado, let's start the pitches. So each team is going to have 10 minutes to pitch their project, followed by 5 minutes of Q&A from the judges. And our very first team, it's time to introduce them. It's the fine folks at Agritech, Ohio. So by this stage of the competition, we're pretty confident you guys know the drill. Whenever you're ready, please turn on your cameras and mics, share your screen, and begin your pitch. Again, we welcome our first team today, Agritech, Ohio. Take it away, guys.
It looks like my video is blocked at the moment. Here we go. And let me share my screen. I can't share my screen yet. Please unblock it. Here we go. Ready. Shall I start?
Go for it.
Using our patented CRBBP process, we plant and then multitask special biocrops to cost effectively protect Lake Erie and its bordering communities by removing excess nitrogen and phosphorus and other contaminants from watershed soils. And we capture lots of CO2 to combat climate change, which also hurts the lake. And then we harvest those crops and make circular economy bioproducts. Hi, my name is Joe James. I'm the founder of Agritech Ohio. I'm a former 33-year economic development professional. I served a 6-year term as a secretarial appointee on the Federal Biomass Research and Development Technical Advisory Committee. And we capture lots of CO2 to combat climate change, which also hurts the lake. And then we harvest those crops and make circular
I'm just going to pause you.
bioproducts.
Can everyone make sure they're on mute?
Hi, my name is Joe James. I'm the founder of. I'm a former 33-year economic development. I'm in the echo chamber.
Yep, just a quick reminder to everyone, while the presentations are ongoing, if everyone could mute their microphones, that's causing a little bit of that.
And we harvest those crops and make circular.
Joe, if you could restart. I think my live stream was still running in the background, so feel free to restart when you're ready.
Okay, here we go. Using our patented CRBBP process, we plant and then multitask special biocrops to cost effectively protect Lake Erie and its bordering communities by removing excess nitrogen and phosphorus and other contaminants from watershed soils, even as we are capturing large amounts of CO2 to combat climate change, which also adversely impacts the lake, and then making circular economy bioproducts from the resulting material or biomass of those biocrops. Hi, I'm Joe James, a former 33-year economic development professional. I served a 6-year term as a secretarial appointee on the Federal Biomass Research and Development Technical Advisory Committee. I invented and patented our CRBBP process and licensed and patented an innovative biomass carbonization process. Our company is focused on several local, national, and global challenges. Of course, the lake has suffered from harmful algal blooms, and to protect Lake Erie, we need cost-effective ways of removing excess nitrogen and phosphorus and other contaminants from watersheds and even from the lake itself. The lake also suffers, as the world is suffering these days, from climate change. And to protect the lake and our nation and the world, there's a need for cost-effective ways to capture CO2 and then to sequester the captured carbon to keep it out of the atmosphere. And then there's a variety of other environmental challenges that need cost-effective solutions as they impact air, soil, and water. Our solution is our patented combined remediation, biomass, and bioproduct production process. I'm sorry for such a long name, and that's why we use CRBBP, but you'll see that the multitasking that we put our crops to helps to more cost-effectively protect Lake Erie and does other things that are great for the environment, and also creates an opportunity for us to create employment by employing folks to help us make circular economy bioproducts, which never have to end up as waste, from the plant biomass, including a filler powder, which can be blended with both biopolymers, as you'll hear about in just a second, but also blended with the region's plastic waste to give that a home outside of the lake, but and able to be reused over and over again. So biomass sorghum is our preferred crop because it grows fast, big, and extracts lots of nitrogen and phosphorus from farm soils. On the left is a picture of standard sorghum at its 6-month maturity. On the right is biomass sorghum at its 6-month maturity. You can see the tremendous difference in the amount of plant material, which is an evidence of the plant growing rapidly and pulling things out of the soil, including nitrogen and phosphorus that it uses to grow. In fact, biomass sorghum captures huge amounts of CO2 in its 6-month life. The University of California at Berkeley did an analysis for us that shows that biomass sorghum captures nearly 4 times the CO2 per acre as an equal acreage of trees, and almost twice as much as switchgrass, another commonly known biocrop. We can actually not only plant our crops in farm soils, but we can actually create a floating farm that can both remediate lake water and also keep it a little cooler in the summertime, where heat has been an increasingly problematic occurrence. In fact, we can also create spray fields into which contaminated wastewater or runoff water can be sprayed and cleaned before it hits the water table and leaks into the lake. As I said earlier, we then take the resulting biomass and convert that material into circular economy bioproducts that never have to end up as waste. The markets for those products include a superior alternative to carbon black filler powder. You may know that carbon black filler powder is made from purposefully underburning oil. So the arsenic, lead, and mercury that's in oil is actually concentrated into carbon black filler powder, and therefore it gets into the products that it's ultimately used to make. We make a clean alternative to carbon black, and it fits nicely into the plastics market, but also can be used to make composites, and tires are 30% carbon black. Think about the fact that you change your tires every 2 or 3 years. Where does all that tire wear powder go? It goes into the environment and creates hazards in the environment for people and animals and others. We also make a superior poultry house bedding. It's more absorbent of moisture, but it also helps to control ammonia better. So that fits into the poultry market. And then we can harvest the litter, the resulting litter, and convert that into a nutrient-rich biochar soil amendment, for which there's interest been expressed by the home and garden care industry to use it in their potting soil. Here's another example of what we can make. This is a shipping pallet. It's made from our filler powder and from waste plastic. And if it breaks or gets worn, it can be melted down and used again over and over again. It's one of those circular economy products that we're able to make using some of the products that we make. One of our key competitive edge is the fact that we are multitasking our crops, providing multiple benefits, and that multitasking creates cost savings. If we were to grow our crops for just one specific purpose, that cost would be substantially higher. But the fact that we can use our crops and have them perform environmental services, actually several, both removing nitrogen and phosphorus, but also capturing CO2 out of the atmosphere, and then convert them into bioproducts. This cost spreading makes the cost of everything that we do lower than it would otherwise have been had our biocrops been grown for a single task or purpose. We have some outstanding collaborators, R&D partners, and funders. In the private sector, the Exelon Foundation is a partner. It's the nation's largest utility. Dominion Energy, which has a presence in Ohio, is also a recently adopted partner. We've worked with the Electric Power Research Institute in the past, and we certainly work with biocrop seed providers. We've also gotten funding from the federal government, And I'm very pleased to announce that last week we got a notification that we've been awarded an $81,000 BioMade grant from the Department of Defense. We've also gotten other. Our university partnerships are outstanding. We have a great collaboration with the University of Akron in their School of Polymer Science, and they're helping develop bioplastics and blending those with our powders. We've licensed the carbonization technology developed by NC State. University of Maryland Eastern Shore assisted us with our watershed project in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, and has just recently included us in their multi-state federally funded Mass Bio project. Speaking of university partners, I'd like Will Hemker, who's a key partner for us, to make a few comments now, if he would. Will?
Yes, thanks, Joe. Agritech and Joe James has been a supporter of the University of Akron polymer science and engineering for a number of years now, doing performance evaluations on the functionality of the bio-based fillers in composite plastics. In addition, we've been working with totally bio-based polymers, again, getting away from the petroleum base. Great relationship. We also see a collaboration through our research foundation with funds we have from the federal government on the western basin of Lake Erie to work with our integrated vegetation-based solutions. His biomass sorghum works very well. We look forward to continuing the collaboration.
Thank you, Will. We've accomplished several milestones that I've mentioned earlier. We're excited because this spring, and the last bullet there, we look forward to working with Dominion Energy, and we actually intend to plant some of our crops in their sites in Ohio. We're going to harvest the crops and convert them into biochar, and bury that biochar in the ground as a way of sequestering the captured carbon. We certainly have competitors. There are companies who make machinery that captures CO2 out of the atmosphere, a very expensive process. There are other companies who have floating islands to remediate water. And there are companies like Conza Renewable Fuels who make and sell torrefaction equipment to carbonize biomass, but none of them has, and our patents prevent them from having such an integrated process as we currently can offer. So using our patented CRBBP process, again, we plant and then multitask special crops to cost effectively protect Lake Erie. And even though we're starting out in Ohio, we look forward to being helpful to all the states
Hi, Joe.
and Canada.
That is time now,
future.
unfortunately.
Thank you.
And we're going to move on to judges' question and answer. So if judges could turn on their videos and their mics and start asking their questions. I see Priscilla has raised her hand.
Hi, Felicia. Joe, and hi, Will. It's been a while since I've spoken with you. I had a question, and you may have answered it, and I'm sorry if I missed it. Is the biomass sorghum genetically modified?
It is not. It is bred. However, it was bred to make cellulosic ethanol because they wanted to produce as much tonnage of material per acre. It was underappreciated in terms of its ability to capture CO2 and its ability to uptake nitrogen and phosphorus, but the plant biology, by the way plants work, the photosynthesis causes them to absorb CO2, and their root systems, through a process called phytoremediation, is able to pull out the problematic substances like nitrogen and phosphorus.
Oh, I got that one. What about, so here's my next, actually I have several questions, Felicia, but I'll let somebody else have a turn if they want. Can I follow up with real quickly with you, James? Joe? As far as how you pull other, nitrogen and phosphorus I got, how do you pull those other contaminants out of either the water of Lake Erie or the watershed or the nearby land mass? Hello?
Priscilla, was that a question to me?
His internet.
Either one of you.
cut off?
Okay. Well, the way that any of the plants, we've been working with perennial grasses and forbs, such as a switch grasses, but also the biomass sorghum. They plants can fundamentally pick up heavy metals and other contaminants out of that area. So, but really, what we're looking at on the plant remediation in dealing with the harmful algal blooms are the phosphorus is a primary nutrient. Of course, nitrogen follows.
Can I ask you one other follow-up question? And this one is for Joe James. Joe, how do you monetize the environmental benefits like cooling Lake Erie?
I believe Joe's internet cut off, and so he's not on the call. So I guess I want to. He's back. But if we, in the meantime,
You're on mute.
If we want to do it, if we want to do another.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello. How do you monetize some of the environmental benefits, such as cooling Lake Erie?
Well, first of all, we monetize them in part by selling the bioproducts. That helps to provide a monetary value. We've been having discussions with farmers, and rather than us planting the crops just for our own purposes, we might be able to integrate them into a farmer's planting cycle, particularly farmers that have high levels of nitrogen and phosphorus. They're motivated to try to reduce those levels, and then we could purchase the crops from after they've used them for that purpose. Or we could provide a service of planting those crops ourselves.
Okay, so primarily it's the crop itself that where you're getting your money from one way or another.
The other opportunity is that as we there are carbon credits, and on our work with Dominion Energy, we are qualifying the biochar that we make for carbon credits. That creates a cash flow as well.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Akbar. So, hey, Joe, you mentioned that you are you can plant these plants in the water as well as, are they along the waterways, these sorghum plants, or just on land, period?
Yeah, there could be places in the lake or joining the lake, maybe even the river flowing or water body flowing into the lake where there's a high concentration of contaminants. And planting our crops in the water, letting their roots have contact with the water, they can extract the contaminants from that water that they're sitting in. We would float them on the surface and let the roots dangle below.
And you mentioned plastic. Are you actually recycling plastic as well?
Yes, one of the challenges that we're aware of is that there's an accumulation of plastic in the lake, and that waste material, and other waste plastic, we have figured out a way of melting it down and blending it with our filler powder and making a new plastic product like the pallet, the shipping pallet that I showed in the slide from that material. We've actually done that. And that's a way of sort of permanently taking that plastic out of the waste stream and creating a product that can be used over and over again. So if the pallet breaks, you can melt it down and take that material and reform it into another pallet.
Thank you. We still have, since we've had a few technical difficulties, we'll have another minute or two of questions. But Jess, if you wanted to ask your question.
Sure. Yeah, Joe, thanks for the great presentation. I'm just curious how far along you are in scaling the bioprocess. And, when we get into bioprocessing, we start to have to think about the energy that's required and whether we're still actually, this is a cheaper alternative to others. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, we're quite a ways along. Thanks to Will Hemker, we got engaged with the University of Akron a couple of years ago, testing our filler powder, and the filler powder turns out to be very effective. It works well. With the recent grant from BioMade, which is again a Department of Defense funded initiative to encourage the development of a bioeconomy, we have a chance to now perfect that process and begin working one-on-one with customers who we would like to purchase that. So if you're trying to make a car, You want to make it light but strong, our filler powder can help you do that. If you want to make it more sustainable, being able to make your plastic components out of a bio-based plastic as opposed to a one that's made from oil or derivatives of oil, we can help in that area as well. So we've gotten interest from, and here's the beauty of the CRBBP process and its ability to reduce cost. Without naming the company, a nationally known lawn and garden care company was very interested in our biochar. They wanted to pay us a price that was just barely profitable for us, but because we could not reduce our cost, we declined to provide that material to them at that time. It was about 3 years ago. Having invented the CRBBP process, and if you'll accept the cost savings by the multitasking that we put our crops through, and being able to share the cost across those various tasks, we're now in a situation where that product is now profitable for us, and we're going to reapproach that customer again.
Thank you.
And then the last question, Angelique.
Hi, I had a two-part question based on the bioproducts. So you mentioned that there's a shipping crate that you can make from. Is that the only product that you make from that byproduct?
No, we make three. We actually make four, but the three that I'm talking about are the filler powder, number one.
Okay.
Number two is poultry house bedding. We can make a bed. We grind the crops up, and they are more absorbent. They control water in the poultry houses better, and also control ammonia better. And then we can collect the litter after the bedding has been used. That poultry litter can then be converted into a nutrient-rich biochar soil amendment. And that's what the lawn and garden care company was very interested in. We could also take the crop in its raw form and grind it up and carbonize it and make a biochar. And that's what we're going to do with Dominion Energy, that we can plant in there, we can put into their sites as a way of sequestering the captured carbon.
My second question was, the vendors you have are only exclusive to the agriculture business right now?
I'm not hearing you too well. Can you speak a little louder?
I said the vendors that you have to buy products are only exclusive to the agriculture business?
No, on the contrary. The filler powder especially. We just have made contact with something called Centire, CENTIRE. It's a collaboration between the University of Akron and Virginia Tech and the tire industry. The tire industry is aware that carbon black is a pollutant. And so we recently sent information about what we do to Centire, and we got a very enthusiastic response from them. It looks as if they may include us as a participant in their program and give us exposure to the tire industry, which should be, and I hope is looking for an alternative to carbon black.
Thank you. We are now going to move on to the next team. After giving the judges a few minutes to fill out their sheet, and then yeah, I'll pass it back to Tony.
Okay, well, thank you so much to Joe and Will too for that great presentation there. Up next, we have our next presenters from Water Warriors. So really excited to hear what they've been working on here. We'll give it just another second, and then the folks from Water Warriors can go ahead and take it away. So I'm not sure how long we're waiting here for the judges to fill out their sheets, but again, John, Steve, and Bob from Water Warriors on deck here to tell us all about a couple of ways in which they're working to avoid the harmful algal blooms in Lake Erie. So just waiting a few more minutes here, and then they will go ahead with their presentation. Also, just a quick reminder to the judges as we go through these presentations, if you're not currently asking a question or speaking, if you could go ahead and make sure you turn off both your camera and your microphone so we can try to battle through some of those technical issues we had in our first presentation. I think we are ready to go. So again, let's toss it over to the folks at Water Warriors. If you're ready, you guys can go ahead with your presentation. Okay, well, I'm told the folks at Water Warriors are having some internet issues at the moment. So this is the beauty of live events, right? I mean, I'm used to this situation when we have an unexpected, say, broken pane of plexiglass on the hockey rink or something like that. You got to fill some time. So we can fill some time right now by talking a little bit more about what Erie Hack is all about. It's a multi-month innovation challenge that brings together techies, creative thinkers, and entrepreneurs from the US and Canada to develop technology solutions for Lake Erie. Lake Erie challenges, rather, like water quality, infrastructure, social awareness. Since its inception in 2017, Erie Hack has been a collaboration between Cleveland Water Alliance and its partners from Buffalo, Detroit, Windsor, Ontario, and Toledo. And so with that context for you there, I think John and the folks at Water Warriors are back and ready to proceed with their presentation. So without further ado, let's hear from the fine folks at Water Warriors. Go ahead, guys.
All right. We're Water Warriors. We treat water how it should be treated, naturally and affordably. The problem we're solving is nutrient contamination, namely phosphorus and ammonia, and it's everywhere. This map shows the nutrient pollution from ag runoff into the Mississippi River Basin. The pink spots are the cities. The green is all ag runoff. The EPA calls nutrient pollution one of the biggest and most expensive problems. And Lake Erie is only getting worse. The EPA designated as an impaired body of water. On Lake Erie, the city of Toledo spends more than $4,000 a day on carbon-activated filtration during bloom events. Water Warriors is a small startup that provides solutions to fight nutrient pollution, to absorb it, to get it out of the water so issues like algae blooms and loss of marine life never happen. And then we return the nutrients to the land as a slow-release, nutrient-rich fertilizer. So we develop Poseidon pellets, pellets that are able to absorb phosphorus and ammonia on contact. And here's how it works. Water simply flows through our insoluble pellets, and the phosphorus and ammonia stay behind. When the pellets reach capacity, the nutrients are returned to the land as a slow-release fertilizer known as struvite. We developed this through a CRADA agreement with the EPA, a cooperative research and development agreement, and Water Warriors holds the patent in our IP. Poseidon is designed for both non-point sources like farms, waterways, stormwater, and wetlands, and point sources industrial and municipal plants. These are the markets that we can serve. And the reason why is their pain is the same. You know, from a wastewater treatment plant to a family fish farm, stormwater, even watershed protection, the fines and lack of effective solutions out there. We manufacture both Poseidon wastewater and Poseidon ag and stormwater pellets. It's scalable, and we can package it in multiple ways. For our Poseidon ag stormwater pellets, you need a retention time of about 17 seconds. These pellets are fast, and they need to be. You can't control the flow rate of a storm event. They cost less, but have less capacity. It's a speed and capacity trade-off. Poseidon wastewater has a retention time of 10 minutes. The capacity for these is off the scale. They cost a lot more, but use fewer pellets and are usually calculated to last around 12 months. Here, capacity means more than speed when you can control the flow rate and retention time. To give you an idea, we're designing a proof of concept for a 12,000 milligram per liter phosphorus concentration. A typical wastewater plant is around 10 to 15. And there's competitors in each category. In the wastewater, it's Ostera, Veolia, Blue Water Bio. They're using the same chemical reaction that we're doing, but they use it in an insoluble way. We use they use it in a soluble way. We make an insoluble pellet, but the chemistry is the same. It reacts with just the ammonia and the phosphorus and forms a struvite, a slow release fertilizer. For stormwater and ag runoff, we've got competition like biochar, zeolite, Phoslock. The one competitive advantage we have is we only absorb phosphorus and ammonia. The others can pick up other contaminants in the water. And here's an example of that. A sand filter was retrofitted with 500 pounds of pellets at a treatment plant in the UK. It was able to remove anywhere from 50 to 75% of the phosphorus, so they were able to meet their limit. And Poseidon stormwater is designed to be used with existing stormwater media. Our Poseidon pellets can also be used to treat agriculture runoff in what is known as a P-trap. These are what it would look like as a proposed solution. It's essentially a French drain made out of media. And these P-traps can be connected to tile drainage and any kind of ag runoff. Anywhere where the phosphorus collects as well into a contamination area. And there's only 3 parameters to a P-trap: the amount of Poseidon pellets needed, sufficient flow rate and contact time, and the ability to replace and reuse the media. The USDA has even developed an app to design the P-traps. It calculates everything you need to make a perfect P-trap, from the slope to the depth to the amount of the media. It's really well done. So let's talk data. You want data? We've got data. We completed a pilot test with a 60 million gallon per day wastewater treatment plant in southeastern Ohio and got a 71% reduction. For aquaculture in Idaho, we had a 43% reduction. We're moving the process downstream, away from the suspended solids, so we expect that to go up. For a municipal lagoon in the US, we saw an 82% reduction. Using a sand filter at a wastewater treatment plant in the UK, 87%. In South Africa, 80%. And in Spain, 58%. And these are just some of the vessels that we've used to kind of prove our pilots out, from cylinder testing to sand filter testing to just putting them in a boom sock in a tank and letting the water flow through. We had the Wisconsin DNR perform a toxology test, and they deemed it acceptable for agriculture and stormwater runoff. We're working hand in hand with the USDA and EPA on this technology, and we'd like to show you what it can do to help Lake Erie. Thank you.
Thank you. And now if the judges could unmute their mics turn on their videos and ask their questions. I see, Jess, that you have a question.
Yeah, thanks, John. Great presentation. I'm curious about, you mentioned like some wastewater treatment plants, lagoons especially, that might not have something like a sand filtration setup today.
Yeah.
What kind of CapEx are they looking at just to get started running this? And what kind of return on investment do you think they would see?
We sell it under an operating budget, not a CapEx. And it's sold as an aggregate by the pound. So with that, as long as we know the influent of phosphorus, where they want to be at the effluent, what the retention time and flow rates are, we can determine an ROI with 12 months of media. Okay. So we can design a system using a simulation model, giving those different parameters. We've had, wastewater treatment plants usually have around 10 to 15 milligrams per liter of phosphorus. They typically are trying to get it between 2 or 1 and below. Mm-hmm. In some cases, we have ag runoff that's as high as 100 milligrams per liter. So the amount of media really changes depending on the solution that you're trying to fill.
Sure.
So for the 12,000 milligram per liter example that we're doing a proof of concept now, we found that 1 pound of our pellets can treat 2 gallons of water at that high of a concentration.
Okay.
Which is
can you just clarify just briefly? So are you saying that there's no like minor infrastructure that's required, like in the example of the sand filtration kind of scheme that you showed? Wouldn't some kind of infrastructure need to be installed to house those the media?
That was using a piece of existing infrastructure. They can be, as long as the pellets are contained in some kind of vessel, and they're a little downstream from the suspended solids, so they don't, clog up the pores of the pellets. Or the one nice thing about a sand filter is it had a backwash, so the solids weren't going to contaminate them. But they can literally be put in a boom sock and put in a stream, put in a river, and they'll work effectively. We also make a sediment screen that goes around the boom sock to keep the leaves and mud and all that gunk away from the pellets. So when they reach capacity, you simply remove the sock from the interior of the screen, and you've got struvite fertilizer.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, if you want to go next.
Sure. My questions have to do with the pellets, particle size, experiments you've done with particle size, absorption. Is it absorption that stuff gets absorbed into the pellet? The third one, well, let's do with that first. The experiment with particle size.
Okay, so particle size is essential for hydraulics. The smaller the particle, the more adsorption it's going to have. But at some point, you're clogging up the water, right? So our particle size is between 2 millimeter and 4 millimeter, and we found that to be pretty ideal. We've worked on the pellets for about, it's been about 4 years now with the EPA. Never imagined designing a pellet would take so long. Typically, pellets, you compact material, it deteriorates. Here it had to compact, but be porous, able to be insoluble in any kind of water conditions for up to a year, and then able to degrade in the field by the soil acids and microbes. So it
has to be durable enough to withstand water for a period of time.
Yes.
And then it has to then go to the field and be dissolved.
And one of the ways we've looked at it is on the back end, that can be a subscription model where, the people who place the pellets can come and retrieve them and, sell them back to a fertilizer company or a land apply them themselves.
And the uniformity from just a capture of nitrogen and phosphate in those pellets, is there any kind of uniformity to those in terms of percent of N and P?
Because the chemical reaction is struvite, it's a magnesium ammonia phosphate reaction. So that happens in a 1 to 1 to 1 molar ratio. So in certain conditions, you know, we estimate the lifespan of the pellets, but in certain situations, we can take samples back to the EPA, test them and see, you know, have these reached capacity yet? Or, you know, were the calculations correct? So we do have the ability to test before, during, and after.
Of all the different ways where you think you can use these pellets, which one of all those would you think the greatest opportunity is where you want to focus first?
You know, we have connections in wastewater facilities just from having a biomedia background. So that's where we've been able to make inroads. And then another industry that appeared to us, who sought us out, was aquaculture. It's not one that we had planned to pursue anytime soon, but it's kind of become almost a beachhead market for us. And it's protecting, you know, kind of the higher quality fish, you know, like shrimp and tilapia can live through a nuclear war. But when you get to like trout, like rainbow trout and salmon, they're very sensitive to the nutrients in the water.
Good, thanks.
All right, thank you, Tiffany. You will be our last question.
Hi, John. I'm Tiffany Jordan with the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. I believe you answered the majority of my questions. And the questions were how many pellets per pound of water does it take? Are they dissolvable? As well as how often do you have to replace or repeat the new pellets to go into the lake water or however?
Yeah, they're insoluble in water, which means they'll never break down. They'll break down in the land because of the, you know, the acids in the soils and the microbes. The capacity depends on the water. You know, again, what's the phosphorus coming in and what's the desired phosphorus going out. So by adding more media, we can quickly lower the phosphorus going out to be under almost any number you want. It's just a media volume game at that point. Plus the flow rate and the retention time. So if all of those three are in balance, then we can calculate the pellets to last for 1 full year before replacement. So in something like stormwater, where you've got an urban underground structure, you don't want to access that every 3 to 6 months, you know. We could put in a volume of pellets there to be from 1 to 3 years before replacing.
All right, thank you, John. And now if the judges could turn off their cameras, mute their mics, and we will give the judges about 2 minutes to fill out their judging sheet.
All right, thank you so much, Felicia. And in these 2 minutes, as we wait for our next presentation to begin from the fine folks at Curbing Sediment, let's just talk a little bit about, you know, Erie Hack, the last couple of iterations. This is the third iteration of this great event, with previous competitions taking place in 2017 and 2019. The next one's going to be in 2023. But Erie Hack is pretty remarkable. It's awarded $250,000 to date. In 2019, Erie Hack saw 40+ innovative technology solutions generated. Of course, continued acceleration with 4 teams, including involvement in numerous projects, grant applications, funding opportunities. The 2019 winning team was Taxo, Trap and Contain Stormwater Objects from Cleveland. Their innovation was a geodesic dome made up of polymers to catch garbage that winds up in Lake Erie because of sewer overflow during storms. So it's a great event. We're so excited to be back with 2023 event looming here. Now with just about a minute left before our next presentation, let's tee it up for Curbing Sediment. They'll be our next presenters. I'm excited to have to hear what they have to say about curbs, a kind of everyday item that can have some pretty interesting applications here. So let's send it over now to the fine folks at Curbing Sediment. Go ahead, guys.
All right, let me share this screen really quick. All right, I will assume that you all can see this unless someone tells me otherwise. Good afternoon. We are Curbing Sediment, Connect to Protect. I'm Helena Steiner, an assistant professor in landscape architecture at the Knowlton School. I also have 8 years of private sector design experience where I worked on green infrastructure pilot projects with the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. I'll be presenting with Ryan Winston, an assistant professor in civil engineering at Ohio State University, specializing in stormwater management. The research that was conducted with former undergraduate students, A.V. Obel and Alec Grimm. The standard curb and gutter has seen little innovation in the past century. Curbing sediment asks, how can we improve the function of a standard curb, gutter, and apron on a regular city street? Defined by a 6-inch grade change, you may ask, why does a curb need to be improved? Our streets are full of pollutants called first flush toxins. First flush toxins and sediment accumulate on the road and during storm events are carried with stormwater into the storm drain. Stormwater runoff transports pollutants, including sediment, nutrients from lawn fertilizers, bacteria, pesticides, metals, and petroleum byproducts to Lake Erie, impacting our biggest regional asset. Once in the water, similar to microplastics, they are nearly impossible to remove. Pollutants are ingested by fish, clogging their gills. Pollutants bioaccumulate within aquatic life and impact terrestrial animals such as humans who consume these organisms. The US EPA notes that 1/3 of public water systems in the United States were in violation of federal drinking water quality standards in 2016. You may say, well, we have bioswales and we have green infrastructure to help clean our water. And this is true. But the EPA cites construction activities, bare soil, erosion, and winter sand application as common sources of sediment in urban runoff, which, when routed to bioswales by stormwater, builds up at inlets, clogs soils, and smothers plants. Bioswales also have physical limitations, such as existing mature trees or narrow sidewalks, limiting their application in certain areas. Furthermore, sediment can clog catch basins, which can cause localized flooding. About 1/3 of the total population of the Great Lakes in the Great Lakes Basin is in the Lake Erie watershed, making it the most urban Great Lake. Approximately 12 million people live in the watershed, including 17 metropolitan areas with more than 50,000 residents. Thus, we need to develop new solutions to manage urban pollution to protect our Great Lake. There are over 130,000 miles of roads within the watershed. A typical curb and gutter is designed for conveyance of stormwater only, and so it does not provide any water quality benefit. Can we challenge conventional design standards like the curb to do more? With widespread use of curbs, small-scale changes have the ability to have regional impacts. If we can design a better curb, one that collects pollutants before they enter Lake Erie, we can improve the health of our watershed. We tested 21 alternatives to the standard curb and apron via an iterative design process. Apron designs extend 12 inches from the curb face and are no deeper than 1/4 inch. These prototypes provide a proof of concept that with additional funds can be studied at the field scale. The new designs can be fabricated using existing construction techniques. The patterns can be precast, cast on site, ground, or stamped. We believe that this modification to the standard curb and apron would require minimal additional cost.
This video shows one of our lab tests from a top view. Simulated stormwater enters the mock road from the right with the curb and apron located at the bottom. You'll note the roughness in both the curb and apron with sediment trapped in the patterns as the simulated rainfall event continues. These lab scale simulations proved very promising for trapping sediment. Here are some of the first tests of the apron and curb. The dots pattern was inspired by tactile paving used for the visually impaired. Tactile paving is already found in the urban environment. As such, we considered it a good precedent for dimensions and density. However, the dots pattern, even at a higher density, was not as effective in collecting sediment as some of the other patterns that we tested. Further tests of different apron patterns revealed angling the pattern toward the curb and gutter to be more successful at treating stormwater and capturing sediment. We tested 8 different configurations of curb and apron designs. You can see those pictured here with both roughness in the curb and the apron. These included different pattern densities, curb cut dimensions, and different connections between the curb and apron patterns. Our lab test simulated a typical water quality storm event in Ohio. Here you can see the sediment collected after many simulated runoff events. Other pollutants like nutrients and metals preferentially attach to sediment, resulting in broader water quality benefits beyond just total suspended solids trapping. The performance of the curb, apron, as well as the combined curb and apron treatments are shown in this graphic. We note that the greater the roughness, the better the performance. The combined curb and apron designs were the best performing among the bunch and removed an average of 87% of total suspended solids in our laboratory tests. These designs performed consistently for up to a month of simulated runoff events. Here you can see the difference in sediment trapped between the most and least successful of the patterns that we tested. The key takeaways from the testing were as follows. First, curb and apron designs performed the best. Second, connected curb and apron patterns were optimal. Third, patterns need to be angled into the flow of stormwater for best treatment of sediment. And finally, pattern configuration is somewhat flexible and adaptable. Regular maintenance of new curb, gutter, and apron designs can be performed by street cleaning machines already in use, or new maintenance practices coupled with green jobs programs could be developed to support curbing sediment. These new designs can be used in concert with green infrastructure to reduce clogging of GI facilities, or independently to reduce pollutants from roadways. Curbing sediment's small footprint can be advantageous in areas with mature trees and narrow sidewalks. Custom patterns could be developed for business improvement districts or by municipalities to adapt to specific aesthetic, hydrologic, and/or physical conditions. Curbing sediment is a feasible alternative to the standard curb and apron design. We simulated the 90th percentile storm event in the laboratory, equivalent to the 9/10 of an inch water quality event in Ohio. The next step is to translate these laboratory scale designs to the real world. Understanding how these systems function under uncertain precipitation depth, rainfall intensity, and different dry periods is critical to scaling this technology to Lake Erie's urban centers. By upgrading the curb, this new design has the power to transform the standard urban drainage infrastructure. We need step change retrofits to existing infrastructure to make big impacts in Lake Erie's health. Given how ubiquitous roads are in urban areas within the Lake Erie Basin, this solution, applied at scale, could have massive impacts on the health of aquatic ecosystem. Prize money would enable us to collect real-world data to further support the uptake of this novel design by towns and cities. Roads crisscross the landscape, forming an ever-expanding network of asphalt. According to the Federal Highway Administration, this network comprises over 4 million miles of roads in the United States. They are critical to facilitating the movement of people and goods within our cities. However, this network also acts as a magnet and superhighway for pollutants. Laboratory results suggest that modified curbs can collect pollutants from roadways. Small-scale changes in our engineering design standards can have regional and potentially national impacts. And with that, we will thank you for the time and also thank you for the sediment.
Thank you. And now if the judges could turn on their cameras, unmute their mics, and start asking their questions.
Question for larger things that are going down the storm drains. How do you account for those? Like a bunch of leaves and things like that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So for leaves and trash, this will provide a bit more roughness in the curb and gutter, as you might imagine. So it will slow the flow and therefore drop out the sediment. The larger trash and leaves, I think, is another question, which really requires inlet protection in most cases. There's a lot of research being conducted right now in Ohio on different types of devices that can be used in inlets to keep sort of the gross pollutants out of our rivers. And I think that's really the point, the critical point for those larger pollutants to be trapped is right there at the inlet, rather than relying on curbing sediment to do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, Ryan.
Oh, sorry. Is that Jess or Chris?
Yes.
Okay. Have you talked to, and what has been the reaction, if you have, of stormwater and wastewater authorities to this, and how do they think about the impact on their existing processes to treat incoming stormwater?
Yeah, really good question. We've been floating the idea with some municipalities, but primarily have floated this idea with ODOT. We went through their ORIL process, which is basically research for local municipalities here in Ohio. And we finished 6th, and you have to hit 5 to make the cutoff for that research program. So we do have interest from Ohio DOT in this technology. Obviously, they manage many thousands of miles of roads, and if they can come up with a relatively low low effort solution to reduce a lot of TSS from their highways, they're interested, certainly. Yeah.
I believe Priscilla is next.
Hi, nice to meet you both. I wanted to ask you about the, what I thought I heard you say at the end there, Ryan, that the small changes in design standards could make a big impact. So is your company's play to drive those changes in design standards? Are you intending to offer for sale the patterned concrete curb and aprons? And then how would you, and could you retrofit your pattern onto existing ones or not? And then finally, how do you protect that? The fact that, a patterned piece of concrete might actually help stormwater situations. So the question has to do with how your company can make money off of this idea.
Right. So Helena and I did go through the patent process for this idea. We did not go through with the full patent. We had a pending patent for a year. We're really actually hoping that this idea just takes off regardless of the two of us. I don't think either of us are really out to make a bunch of money. We just want to see better stormwater treatment at the end of the day. And so, the next step that we're really looking for, and what we would use the money for, to be frank with you all, if we did win, is to do some testing of this in the field, right? To figure out not only how does it work for sediment, but can we actually see some nutrient removal with this? Can we look at heavy metals, hydrocarbons, et cetera, right? Get some idea of how this system works in the field scale in a place like Cleveland or in a place like Columbus or wherever it might be. So I don't think we're looking to make really any financial benefit, either of us, out of this idea.
Thank you.
All right, Tiffany.
Hello. Who do you think will be ultimately responsible for removing the excess debris? Thank you.
It really matters where they're located. So if it was on OSU's campus, we have people that are already maintaining our streets within the campus. If it's in a business improvement district, a lot of business improvement districts have additional kind of resources allocated to the maintenance of their streets and sidewalks on a more regular basis. If it's a city, it might be the city that would take responsibility. But I think we're also interested in, could it create new types of jobs or new ways of even approaching maintenance, that it's not necessarily a burden, but something that's celebrated. And we think that perhaps even if you see the patterning along a road, maybe it'll get people to think differently about how water is moving around in the world around them.
All right, thank you. And Chris, last question.
Yeah, real quickly, in your testing of your premise, did you collect stormwater in a number of drains to actually test them for your hypothesis that there was actually sediment with all that stuff in it?
Good question, Chris. So the way we did it was actually to create synthetic stormwater, and those were based off of particle size distributions that we had collected in a previous research study for Ohio Department of Transportation, where we measured stormwater particle size at 12 different roads spread across the state of Ohio, including 4 in the Lake Erie Basin. We modeled our particle size distribution based upon that. So it was essentially about 70% silt and clay taken from a residential site in Dayton of all places, and then mixed that with 30% playground sand to get to roughly the particle size distribution that we typically see from roads here in Ohio.
All right. Well, thank you so much to the folks at Curbing Sediment. So just a programming note here. We're going to take a quick, about a 5-minute break. Before we do that, I want to remind you guys, for the judges there, if you're not actively talking, if you could go ahead and just mute your camera and your microphone during future Q&A sessions. Much appreciated, just to help things go smoothly on a technical end. So going to take about a 5-minute break before our next presenters take over. Those guys will be Life Magnetics. But in the meantime, the fine folks at the Cleveland Water Alliance have a video that we would like to play. But thanks to all our presenters and judges so far. Again, quick 5-minute break or so, and we'll get right back to our presentations. All right. Well, thank you so much to the fine folks at CWA for that little video, complete with that terrifying action shot of me calling the Monsters game there. Appreciate that, guys. You went way into the archives for that one. All right. So happy to hear all these fantastic presentations again today at Erie Hack. We're going to keep things rolling now after that brief break. Time now to hear from the fine folks at Life Magnetics. Their presentation is up next. And without further ado, after that brief break, guys, go ahead. Here are the folks from Life Magnetics. Have at it.
All right, there we go. Kayla's here too.
Yes. Hello.
All right, so we are Life Magnetics. I'm Dr. Kevin Hagedorn, and our company has been working on simplifying PCR testing, which is used to assess the health of the lake. So we use PCR testing in a number of different ways to assess the health of the lake. One is to detect pathogens in recreational waters. Another is to detect the source of bacteria, which make it into our waterways. We can determine the source of the bacterial contamination. We can more effectively eliminate it. And another is to detect toxic algae blooms. The problem with environmental testing with DNA and RNA is that the prep is time consuming. And with RNA in particular, RNA has a very short half-life. Do you remember during the COVID-19 pandemic, how at first we couldn't do at-home testing for COVID-19? And do you remember how the mRNA vaccines need to be stored at -80? Well, RNA is not a very stable molecule. It's fragile, it tends to fall apart, and that poses certain challenges when you're trying to do remote testing. We were funded by the National Science Foundation to solve this issue. So what we've developed is an engineered carbon, which is coated on a magnetic bead. And when the engineered carbon is present with calcium chloride and single-stranded nucleic acids, it binds to those nucleic acids and stabilizes them in these complexes that you can see here for later testing. The calcium chloride is a food additive, 100% safe for drinking water, and the magnetic beads are entirely removed when a magnet is applied. When you get the sample back to the lab, all you have to do basically is put the sample next to a magnet that'll pull out all of the magnetic beads with the nucleic acids attached. And then you just pipette off any additional liquid. And when you add pure water that doesn't have calcium chloride, the nucleic acids come off for testing. We've been evaluating this process in collaboration with Central Michigan University to deploy it for population screening for COVID-19. At Central Michigan University, they were able to successfully use the process to quantify SARS-CoV-2 and all of its variants in Mount Pleasant. So on the right is the data that we get off of the digital droplet PCR. We can quantify the paternal variant of SARS-CoV-2, as well as the Delta and Epsilon variants using the method with improved sensitivity as compared to their old testing method. Additionally, we cut the process time down from about 3 days to about an hour and a half without automation. With automation, we can further cut that down to about 30 minutes. The key problem with the old method was that it relied on collecting the water and then precipitating down the solids that were present in the water, which would take a lot of time, centrifugation, a lot of manual steps and filtration. With this process, it's effectively directly pulling nucleic acids out of the liquid solution. And that's much quicker, much easier, and is a dramatic time and cost reduction. In spike experiments, we recovered 99% of 5.6 virus that they spiked into the samples. With Eurofins, we evaluated this for a kidney transplant rejection test, and we were able to see 1 month of stability. This is important because if you're doing environmental testing, it's difficult to to work out the logistics if your sample degrades in 30 minutes. So giving you 1 month of shipping and storage at room temperature is critical if you're going to use RNA in any sort of environmental or remote testing application. Our team consists of several groups around the lake, which are committed to the project. Our leads are out of the University of Michigan, but we have manufacturing support from Caliber Scientific in Toledo and Creative Destruction Lab in Toronto. The core team members, myself, I'm a material scientist from the University of Michigan. I've won 2 small business and innovation awards from the National Science Foundation to develop this product. My co-founder, Rashad Kalla, is a molecular biologist, also out of the University of Michigan. He received statewide recognition this past year for discovering a new variant of COVID-19 in Kalamazoo. Our newest addition is Kayla. She's a biologist from Kettering University with experience in water testing. In particular, she did water testing during the Flint water crisis a couple of years ago. For the proposed use of funds and what we hope to accomplish with this project. So this is a satellite image of Lake Erie a few years ago. There's a lot of algae blooms in the lake, as you can see. Quantifying the cytotoxins which are produced from toxic algae blooms is still expensive and a challenge. We would like to apply the SARS-CoV-2 testing method to detecting RNA sequences associated with production of these toxins. This would be dramatically easier and cheaper than what's currently done, and it would allow us to track the saxitoxins and hexatoxins, which are not tracked at all currently. It would basically create a map like you saw before with SARS-CoV-2, but for production of the different toxins. Additionally, we would like to apply the method to reduce the cost of detecting E. coli and other bacterial contaminants in recreational waters and for tracing the sources of this contamination back to the source. The product is relatively easy to implement as compared to some of the larger infrastructure things. So this is the competing product, which a lot of the labs currently use from Kaijin. This kit is manufactured in China by a German company. With our kit, everything is manufactured locally in Michigan and Ohio. The packaging comes from Sandusky Packaging. The bottles are for many of the buffers are filled in Toledo, Ohio. The core engineered carbon is manufactured by a laser process adapted from the auto industry here in Michigan. The key value proposition to these testing labs like Great Lakes Water Authority and Toledo Water and Wastewater Testing Labs is that the process time for doing RNA and DNA testing is much quicker, 2 to 3 hours versus several days in some cases. And we can, by allowing for them to do more effectively do RNA testing, we can allow them to expand their offerings to include pathogen testing for contaminants, in addition to reducing the overall cost of this testing. To look at the big picture just briefly before we go. So the SARS-CoV-2 vaccines were developed in 3 days and then took several months to do human trials. We have other applications for RNA technology in medicine and in agriculture. So in 2014, the National Science Foundation wrote a report that RNA biopesticides would be an important contribution to reducing the amount of pesticides which are present in the environment. But if you think about it, if we have to do -80 storage and transport for pesticides, that's not going to be feasible in the long term. So many of the RNA-based solutions that we have for testing and for as a solution to pesticide runoff won't be feasible unless we have a way to ship and store the RNA molecule more effectively. So that's what our company is trying to do, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. And if judges could turn on their cameras, unmute their mics, and start asking their questions. Be sure to use the raise hand feature. Akbar.
Okay, so I like that presentation. So could I, as a civilian, go and buy this product and test the water? Did that
Yes.
simple? Yeah.
Yes, but you need this is all the reagents you need. You need a PCR. So there's a couple of pieces of equipment that you're going to need that are a bit more expensive. The reagents aren't that bad, but it's cheaper. It's cheaper than the if you're talking about the microcystin testing for the toxins. The PCR is about $15,000, which is expensive for a person, but it's a lot cheaper than the $200,000 mass spec liquid chromatography instruments. So PCR testing is a cost reduction. I still wouldn't recommend it for like an individual though.
Okay. All right. So this is for municipalities and things like that. Companies.
I mean, I have a PCR in my basement, so hypothetically it is possible, but.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Tiffany, you're next.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Jordan from the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. When the COVID was at its highest rate, we did testing and we were able to report those numbers out to the community as it relates to our testing of our water. What separates you from another company?
I missed the very beginning of that. What type of testing?
I'm sorry, we were doing testing of our water for COVID numbers. And
okay.
So we were this kind of like this beginning source to see if the COVID rates would spike and things like that at the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. So I was just wondering what would separate you from another company that does a similar type of testing?
Yeah, so for COVID testing in particular, we've been able to really cut down the process time. So at Central Michigan University, the way that they used to do the COVID testing from the sewer system was they would take a sewer sample and they'd basically precipitate the solids that were present in that sample. And then they'd extract the nucleic acids, the COVID genes from that solid sample. But the problem is that it takes a couple of days for you to precipitate any RNA that might be floating around in the liquid down into that solid pellet. And so that's why it's so time consuming and takes so long to turn around. What we're doing is we're directly pulling the nucleic acids out of the liquid solution, which makes that entire process much, much quicker. Because if you just bind the nucleic acids and then pull them out with a magnet, you can turn around that data in 20 or 30 minutes as opposed to 3 days.
Zilla?
So I want to understand, is Life Magnetics a company or just like okay, so is your play to sell the reagents or is your play to sell a service? So you'd come in and test Northeast Ohio's Regional Sewer District's water for them and give them an answer quicker.
Talking to the local stakeholders recently, probably just sell the reagents. We do the testing internally in our labs, but given the complex nature of the entire water system that we've seen lately, deploying the test is probably going to be a matter of selling our reagents to testing labs that are already doing the testing and just making their testing easier.
Super, thank you.
We still have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Alexis?
Hi there. Enjoyed the presentation. Really quickly, so in the probably very near future, there will be obviously different testing methods that can be applied. So, if, for example, just a person off the street was going in, to, get something tested, if that was a possibility, could you give an example of maybe how you might get buy-in just from the general public? Maybe like how might you explain it to just your average person who doesn't have, maybe a lot of background knowledge? concerning this to get
Yeah,
some buy-in.
it's been a little bit tricky. It's gotten easier, frankly, with COVID, because now sort of I can give those examples of why the testing was so tricky before. So RNA testing is one of our best and largest sources of data when it comes to biological systems. And so RNA testing in general is very, very important. It's basically like your DNA is every single cell in your body has the same DNA, but your cells are doing different things depending on where they're located. So your eye cells are doing something different than your stomach cells. Your eye cells don't want to make stomach acid, right? That would be bad. So RNA expression is basically what your cells are actively doing. And that's why it's one of the best sources of information, because in the case of the cyanotoxins, the cyanobacteria, they may have the gene to make the toxin, but they might not actually be doing it. And so that's where the RNA expression analysis can tell us, are the cyanobacteria actually producing the toxin? And that's why it's a better source of data. But that transport issue is critical. If you can't transport and stabilize the sample, then somebody off the street can't just bring in a sample, right? Because they won't have the viability long term. But if you've got a way to stabilize the RNA, for example, in those magnetic beads, then yeah, somebody off the street could bring in a sample and you could do the testing and deliver them a result, which wasn't feasible before.
All right, thank you. And we are going to give the judges 1 or 2 minutes to fill out their judging sheets before moving on to the next team.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you, Felicia, and thanks, guys, for that presentation. While we await the start of our next presentation from the folks at RNA Power, just wanted to take a minute to again say thanks to all of our partners and supporters, including local champions at Techtown Detroit, Midstory, Blackstone Launchpad at the University at Buffalo, We Tech Alliance, of course, Erie Hacks, also presented by the First Solar Community Giving Fund of the Greater Toledo Community Foundation, and the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. Erie Hacks also supported by OHM Advisors, Connecticut, Case Western Reserve University, Leonard Gelfand STEM Center, the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo, Cleveland Metro Parks, the Watershed Stewardship Center, the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation, the Rotary Club of Toledo, and the University at Buffalo Sustainability Office. So thanks to all those great folks who are making today's event possible. And thanks again to all of our fantastic presenters. It's been so interesting to hear all of these amazing projects and initiatives that have been, turned into reality by all you guys. So with that said, I think it's just about time for our next presentation. So we will now toss it over to the fine folks at RNA Power, who can go ahead. And before they start, just another quick reminder to all of our judges out there, if you could please just watch that microphone and camera situation. Make sure you mute your mic and your camera during the presentations themselves. So without further ado, welcome the folks from RNA Power. Take it away, guys.
Hi, everybody. Hold on one moment. Let me get my presentation up here. Okay, we should be going. Okay, hello, everybody. I'm John. I'm a molecular biologist by trade, and that's kind of my background. And today we're going to be talking about how to use RNA to do some really cool things when it comes to harmful algal bloom forecasting and early toxicity detection. So starting with the team, I started a company called EQO. My first company exited by IPO, and my background is largely in biopharmaceutical development and early stage cancer diagnostics. My co-founder, Erica, is a specialist in molecular ecology. And EQO was started on the idea of, we started with looking at invasive species and then moving into endangered species and now biosecurity. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Gary Anderson is a senior scientist at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory and also the founder of a company called Veriset. And his expertise on microbiome analytics is absolutely vital to this project as well. And Marite is our business executive who makes sure that all this stuff is actually doable and can actually get out there and be effective at our launch. So why do we care? Back in, this is looking back to the Toledo water crisis, right? So 400,000 people were without water for way too long. And that was because of a harmful algal bloom problem, making the water toxic and undrinkable. And so the issue is not just how toxic an event is going to be. It's not just where the event's going to occur, it's how toxic it is going to be. Currently, HABs, they threaten public health and water quality, and they're unpredictable in timing, and mainly the real issue is severity. It's a complicated creation process, right? So cyanobacteria exist within a community of other microbes, and the way in which these things interact really impact how things are going to play out on the toxicity side. So I mentioned 400,000 people without water in Toledo is absolutely unacceptable. We looked at, just 1 year, we're looking at $71 million in the Western Erie Basin spent on harmful algal blooms. And Canada expects to spend $5.3 billion over 5 years on harmful algal bloom mitigation. So it's an issue with public safety and public health, and also with financially. So currently, we have some really cool technologies for looking at satellite imagery, right, and other metrics for looking at it in the water. And this gives you a good idea. You can forecast where the blooms are going to go, and you can get a good idea of where they're happening. On the other hand, we have some really cool protein technologies for looking at what is coming, how much toxin was actually produced, on the back end. Mass spec, ELISA, this is looking at the proteins of interest. The bit that we're missing is in the middle. What the actual cyanobacteria, what are they doing? So EQO, as I mentioned before, we specialize in RNA. We've been doing RNA for quite some time. We have a specialty collection system and preservation buffer to where we can collect high volumes of a biological material. We can stop the degradation of DNA and RNA at the point of collection, and then do all the cool analytics back in the lab to determine expression of cyanobacteria or cyanotoxins and expression of things of interest. We've done this in the past for things like how much metabolic activity of, say, an endangered species or an invasive species for early prevention and conservation. This allows us to fill that gap, right, is the point. With this, and by looking at the whole microbiome, we can determine and eventually forecast how severe these impacts are going to be, so you can prevent things like what happened in Toledo. Our side of things, EQO's side, is this stuff on the top. Now, we don't need to worry about nodularin for cyanobacteria, but microcystin and saxitoxin and anatoxins, we certainly do. And so we're going to be probing for the specific gene expression, how much is being produced. Let's say the MCYE is probably going to be the one that you're most interested in. So that's EQO's side. We do the collection, do the preservation, and we're looking at expression. This slide below this is Veriset's side of things. They have a really cool technology where they look at the entire microbiome, all known bacteria and archaea, and quantitatively and reproducibly, and you can gate that for anything. So you can gate that data. They're getting all of it. You can gate that to look at, the 150 some odd known cyanobacteria, right? But then you look at everybody around them. And, back when I was working in cancer diagnostics, we see this all the time. There are specific, like CD20 overexpression. If you have that going on, if too much CD20 is being produced, that's lymphoma, leukemia, right? That's one of the ways that we diagnose it. Now, what CD20 actually does in the cell doesn't really matter for forecasting or a diagnostic. We just know that it's associated. The same thing happens with the bacterial community, right? Some things are going to come up, other things are going to go down, and those predict what's going to happen with the cyanobacteria. And the way that we do that, the way that we're going to know that, is by doing repeated testing to figure that out, and we can come up with a really cool forecasting model. So again, how's it done, right? So we have at EQO, we have these cool sample collection vessels. This is an automated sampler. This is for a site where you have an issue or you need to monitor continuously throughout a year. Or we have these mobile units. So you can go out and take a survey and figure out kind of a baseline or kind of get geological spread, right? And then Veriset has a chip on their end. So we send out either the mobile unit or install the automated unit. These collect samples, preserve the samples, goes to EQO. We extract the RNA and the DNA from the same sample, remove all the inhibitors. And then on our end, we're going to look at gene expression. We're going to send it over to Gary. He's going to look at the entire community and the activity of all the members of the community. Not just are they there or not, but how active are they, which is really what we need to know. This project's already started to an extent. We have some great partners at NOAA that have released some rapid funds for us to do the initial part of it. We've got some samples taken by Limnotech that are pre and post bloom in Toledo, and also someone from Detroit. And the idea there is to kind of get an idea of, and validate the probes that we've already created for this. We've already created the probes for this, and Gary's technology is already in the market. And as you can see, this quote here from Reagan Herrera at at NOAA, one of the major limitations for omics sampling, with all kinds of omics, genomics, and whatnot, is the ability to filter large volumes in a timely manner. EQO does about 2,000 liters per sample. QO design is both simple and efficient, reducing sampling time while also increasing volume. This is the point, right? This is why our system works and allows us to really create these cool these cool forecasting models. And this is why she's looking forward to the results from these analyses, as they may assist us in enhancing our understanding of the bloom ecology. So what are we going to do with the money? Obviously, this is a long stretch that we're interested in, about 172 nautical miles of area that we want to understand. Now, along this 172 nautical miles, there's a lot of sites that we know are going to be an issue. So we know where some of the blooms are going to start, because historically where they started, and we have a good idea of where a lot of the phosphates and nitrogenous waste is entering the system. So at first, we would like to go through and spend this $30,000 kind of using the Osprey to collect samples at known points of interest a couple of different times during the year to figure out, where we need to put the automated samplers. Now, the automated sampling platform, we already have this pushed for NOAA. The rapid funds release. The point here for NOAA's idea for giving out rapid funds is to prove the technology and then expand it to a larger thing. So the implementation of that is going to be in the $225,000 range for a year's worth of auto sampler data. But before we do the auto sampler data, we need the kind of support from people like Erie Hack to go out and do the upfront legwork to know where to put them. Logistically, it makes the most sense to put them at a water treatment facility. There's staff on site that's knowledgeable, and you have power. Scientifically, maybe we want to put them at the sites where we're getting influx of the nutrients. So figuring that out is what we would utilize the winnings from this competition to do. In summary, the point of this is to prevent negative impacts to human health and local economies. That's the whole point of what we're doing. We are already validated, these technologies are already validated in other applications for endangered species management and invasive species. Also, Versets is extremely well validated in other microbial community effects, such as fecal source tracing, and a number of different applications. We want to be able to determine whether blooms are toxic and where toxins are moving, and predict the capability and severity of the blooms even months ahead of time. Once these are in place, we can prevent some of the issues that happen in places like Toledo. With that, I'll take questions before I get too grandiose. Thank you so much for listening, and we're happy to chat.
If the judges can now turn on their cameras, unmute their mics, and I believe Angelique, the first question is yours.
That question was, the presentation was amazing. Thank you. I kind of have two questions. So hypothetically speaking, if this technology was implemented to the extent in which you're explaining, Toledo would have never happened because you would have kind of forecasted it and said, hey, this event might happen. What can we do to prevent this from happening?
Yeah, there's a number, sure, yes, correct. And so there's a number of different things that can be done. If you know it's coming in, you can increase treatment amounts. There's different things that water treatment facilities do to knock the toxin out, right? But if you don't know it's coming, you don't know to turn up the dial, right? The other thing is there are some technologies out there that suppress the cyanobacteria blooms especially when they're early stage. There's a company that we are working with right now called Blue Green Technologies that has they have a way of basically killing off some cyanobacteria blooms. They're out of Israel. There's another company, LG Sonic, that does it with these sonic waves to suppress cyanobacteria. But those things only really work and kind of if you know exactly where it's going to be, and you kind of have to know what you're doing and that's what early detection and forecasting can provide.
And then on that same line, you mentioned placement. Have you guys started to have those conversations with stakeholders and kind of mapping out that plan for what that might look like?
Yeah, so the team we've assembled on this already is Libnotech, the Sigler, University of Michigan. That's kind of on our technical side. The stakeholders that we've talked to at the cities we have buy-in from Toledo, Cleveland, and Detroit, all the water treatment facilities there. And we look forward to extending that. Marite is the queen of relationship building. So going from what we have now at the water treatment facilities and expanding it to those areas to look at, once we decide this is where we need to place the auto sampler. And we kind of the long term of that is we expect the auto sampler deployment to persist for about a year to build data, and that would be funded through groups like GLRI and GLOSS and those kind of groups, and then in NOAA. And then after that, we need to expand those relationships with municipalities to figure out what's the long-term funding strategy for a project like this.
Yeah, and Angelique, I want to also just add, and John was at MIT and then he's based in California today. We didn't debrief, but I had a wonderful two mentoring calls in the last 24 hours with people that also stakeholders that said we need to look at areas of concern, and specifically the Cuyahoga River and the Maumee River, so that's what we will be working on in addition to the water treatment plants. And we are a very collaborative company, and we want all the stakeholders involved, and we will share the data. That's going to be a totally
this is part of our thing with the University of Michigan Omics project. Not only the cool thing is once we get these RNA and DNA samples, you can go back and probe them for anything you want. So they become banked databases of all genetic activity in the area of when they were taken. So we're transferring all of our frozen aliquots to University of Michigan to preserve that, so you can go back and create a historical record as well. And that's the kind of collaborative kind of thing we're doing. And as far as the Marita, I'm glad they told you that, because Cuyahoga, Maumee, and Detroit rivers are the exact sites I was thinking about.
All right, let's move on to Jess's question.
Sure, thanks, John. Great presentation. Have you tell me about how you've been able to kind of quantify the accuracy of your prediction in terms of does presence of a gene does it necessitate expression of microcystin? And so give us an idea of false positive or false negative rates that you might see in your forecasting.
Yeah, so this project is to build out the forecasting model. Now, as far as we're looking at gene expression levels, not just presence, absence of the gene. So we are specifically looking at levels of expression of toxin. That's well validated, right? We know looking at gene expression, we can tell how much, or have a pretty darn good idea of how much toxin is being expressed within a system. Now, the real trick is it's not just about expression, it's about the release of the toxin, right? Because if it's bound up inside the microcystin, it's not hurting people. If the microcystin gets lysed and releases that toxin, now we have a problem, right? So it's just how much is being produced gives you the risk model up front. Looking at the whole microbiome gives you an idea of what's going to happen. Is it going to release? Is it going to be an event? And that's where Gary comes in.
Great, thank you.
Last question, Chris.
Yes. The picture in my mind is the thing around the lake. It's a bunch of lighthouses. That's what in my mind. And what I'm sensing is you want to put each of your tools around there to have a perpetual measurement system. Am I getting that right?
Nailed it. Yes. Gene expression lighthouses is a good way of looking at this.
Okay. And then with that, who would you control all of those, or would those be individual owners of those?
Oh, so they're automated. You just program them. They're programmable via cell phone of when you take the samples and when they're preserved.
Would they be sitting permanently in a certain part of the lake? Or?
Yeah, they're semi-permanent installations, but as far as who controls it, for example, we have a contract with Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. We just did training and all that kind of stuff. It's installed at their hydroelectric facility. It takes it on a certain time frame, and then they're taking it out and they're sending it to us. Now, okay. we retain ownership of the equipment. It's all sold as a subscription model. So it's kind of, you subscribe to the service.
For the sake of time, I got it. You made it very clear to me. Appreciate it.
All right.
Real quick, will they be in DeLoreans? Because this is some Back to Future stuff.
I hope so. That'd be pretty cool. But then what happened to John DeLorean and the whole cocaine thing with those aluminum cars? That's a whole nother story. None of that. None of that. We're not doing any trafficking.
All right. Let's get back on time. We're going to give the judges 1 or 2 more minutes to fill out their judging sheets. and I'll just pass this on to Tony.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Cheers.
Merci. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys. Great presentation there. Let's just take a couple of minutes as our judges fill out their judging sheets to talk a little bit about the Cleveland Water Alliance in general. CWA is a nonprofit formed in 2014 after local stakeholders saw a need to collaborate amongst sectors to invest in, conserve, and bolster our greatest natural resource, Lake Erie. CWA brings together municipalities, utilities providers, corporations, researchers, academics, tech innovators. These partners help identify water-related issues and create opportunities to invest in, innovate, and accelerate solutions to these issues. So Lake Erie's challenges, to go on a bit here, are not unique to us. We're seeing global water issues on the rise with droughts and shortages, inclement weather, the effects of climate change, the detrimental impact of harmful algal blooms, aging infrastructure, continued issues of equity and access. So participants in Erie Hack, our event here, and our other innovation competitions and requests for technology have the opportunity to not only make an impact locally, but also hold the potential to have their ideas and innovations make waves in the global water community. We're uniquely positioned to utilize our Great Lake to innovate in, invest in, and elevate technologies that will preserve the vitality of Lake Erie and beyond. So great work being done by the Cleveland Water Alliance. Great privilege to be a part of Erie Hack here today. In a little while after our final presentation, while the judges deliberate, we'll be speaking to Brian Stubbs, the president and executive director at Cleveland Water Alliance. So we'll be talking a lot more about CWA, their mission, and all the things they're working to accomplish in the context of Lake Erie and beyond. But right now, I think it's time to turn it over to what I believe is our final presentation of the day. And that comes from the fine folks at Blue Lion Labs. So without further ado, welcome, guys, and go ahead.
Can everyone see my screen? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So hello, everyone. I'm Jason, the CEO of Blue Lion Labs. At Blue Lion, we're building a low-cost microfluidic chip to rapidly identify cyanotoxins in water. But before we get into that, I want to ask you a question. What was the first thing you did after you woke up this morning? Well, maybe you had a cup of coffee, you likely brushed your teeth and had a shower. Well, I bet that within the first hour of your day, you use water. Now I want you to imagine that the water you get from your tap is not clean or safe to drink, but that it has invisible toxins. Toxins produced from a harmful algal bloom. But what exactly is a harmful algal bloom? Harmful algal blooms occur when different types of cyanobacteria grow out of control in our water. These blooms can produce lethal toxins like hepatotoxins and neurotoxins, causing damage to our liver and nervous system. And in some situations, they can even be fatal. But these blooms are not just affecting our drinking water. They're affecting our recreational use of water as well as the fishing industry. It's estimated that the US spends around $4.6 billion a year dealing with harmful algal blooms, and China around $6.5 billion a year. And with climate change, these blooms are only expected to get worse. So what happens if you're a drinking water treatment plant and you have an algal bloom? Well, you need to take a water sample, package it up, and then ship it to a lab. At that lab, they use expensive equipment and highly trained personnel to determine the type and concentration of the toxins in the water. This process normally takes a number of days and results in reactive decision-making for the water utility. Current lab methods require expensive equipment and techniques, the main two being HPLC and ELISA. In addition to being expensive, they require a highly trained individual to operate. However, these lab-based methods are the industry standard and certified by the World Health Organization, the US EPA, and Health Canada. Newer techniques are also emerging, such as eDNA. However, these methods measure whether the gene that produces the toxin is present and don't directly measure the toxin itself. eDNA approaches also require a high level of user experience and are not certified. At Blue Lion Labs, we wanted to address the limitations of these methods. We set out to build a system that could be on-site as well as that was user-friendly, something that didn't require any lab experience. We also wanted to build something that was low cost and something that could be certified, all while having the same resolution as existing methods. Since the lab-based methods are certified, that's where we started. Specifically, we studied the ELISA assay, and then went back to first principles to build on the fundamentals to achieve the other requirements. What we've built at Blue Line Labs is a microfluidic chip that can rapidly identify cyanotoxins in water. So far, we've built a lab prototype that is being tested on one toxin, microcystin LR, or commonly known as MCLR. On the bottom left, you can see our prototype taking in a water sample with a known amount of toxins, as well as taking a microbead. These then mix together and then are imaged with a camera to measure the fluorescence signal, as seen on the bottom right. The intensity of the fluorescence is proportional to the concentration of the toxin in the water. Since our method is built on the ELISA assay, it's very sensitive. The World Health Organization has a toxin threshold of 1 microgram per liter for microcystin. Our prototype will be able to achieve 10 times that resolution and measure 0.1 micrograms per liter. In addition, our method will have high specificity. That is, it'll be able to differentiate between different toxins. In fact, part of our sensor design and unique intellectual property allows us to multiplex different toxins on the same microfluidic chip. Right now, we are designing and building our system for the main toxins that are regulated in the US. These are microcystin and cylindrosporopsin. In the future, we'll be able to generalize to other toxins as well, which can include anatoxins and saxitoxins. All the results from our hardware device will be accessible in real time on a cloud dashboard. This will show all the current and historical data, as well as offer interactive reporting and predictive analytics. This allows multiple shareholders to view the data instantaneously and allowing for real-time communication and decision-making. So in summary, the main benefits of this technology can be broken into 3 main parts. First, it allows for on-site testing. Second, it can do rapid analysis of multiple toxins at once. And finally, it's user-friendly and doesn't require any lab experience to operate. From a business standpoint, there are 2 main benefits of the solution. First, it's low cost. And second, it allows for an early warning sign when a harmful algal bloom may be forming. Just imagine being a water treatment plant operator and being able to quickly and accurately triage the quality of your water, as well as send quality reports and data analytics to key decision makers. The team consists of Dr. Mala Pudina, who's a professor at the University of Waterloo. She's an expert in biomedical and fabrication engineering and completed her postdoc at Stanford. Hamid is working full-time on this project for his master's, and he's an expert in microfluidics and chemistry. Katie has a PhD in aquatic ecology and is the COO of Blue Line Labs. She's also a world expert in harmful algal blooms. And I have a PhD in systems engineering with a focus on water quality and machine learning. We're also joined by 3 key advisors. First, we have Dr. Alexander Wong, who is a world leader in business and machine learning. Then we have Dr. Chao Jin, who's a respected professor at the Sun Yat-sen University in China. Chao is in the tech capital of China and has an extensive network within the water industry. And finally, we have Vikram Valetti, who is a machine learning advisor and a researcher at Mila, one of the top AI labs in the world. Our end users for this technology are drinking water utilities with surface water sources. These are the water utilities that conduct the most amount of toxin monitoring, given the growth of algae in their source water. We will have 3 sources of revenue from these water utilities: a one-time fee for the hardware device and 2 recurring sources. The first recurring source is the consumables and cartridge that we will sell on a per sample basis. The second recurring source is the software and dashboard that will provide real-time results, analytics, and predictive forecasting. The price breakdown and margins are different for these 3 sources. The hardware will be sold at cost for around $5,000. We don't expect to make any profit on this. The consumables and cartridge will be sold at $15 per sample with a 50% margin. And finally, the software and dashboard will be sold for $20,000 a year with a 90% margin. Assuming a single water treatment plant runs 2 samples per day on average, will result in $30,000 in annual recurring revenue for Blue Lion. Given that there's around 14,000 surface water plants in the USA, and given the 30,000 annual recurring revenue per plant, results in a total addressable market in the US of 420 million. Once we have a strong presence in the US, we'll leverage our connections and network in China. China has around 30,000 surface water drinking plants, and given the same 30,000 ARR per plant, results in a total addressable market of 900 million in China. Given our first focus in the US as a beachhead market and our physical location being in Canada, we will begin testing this technology in the field next spring. We already have 2 signed letters of intent of interested parties who want to test our solution. The first is the Great Lakes Institute for Environmental Research on the south end of Lake Erie, and the second is the Niagara region on the north shore of Lake Erie. They're eager to evaluate our technology for use in their municipal operations. We need these funds today for 2 main reasons. First, we started filing our provisional patents, and we need funds to cover the legal fees. And second, we need to deliver on our letters of intent and get our tech outside of the lab into the real world environment. These funds will also accelerate our path to market. Once we have filed our provisional patent, we can start piloting this tech in the US and Canada. The successful demonstration of these pilots will allow us to raise funds. And given this raise, we can then grow our team and build a commercialization plan to sell first in the USA and then into China. But this is just the beginning. Once we have a strong sales and distribution strategy of this technology in the drinking water treatment space, we intend to expand into other markets. The 2 main markets where this technology can benefit are the aquaculture industry, as well as the tourism or recreational industries. We are Blue Line Labs, and we believe that everyone deserves to know if their water is clean and safe to drink. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. And if the judges could turn on their cameras, unmute their mics, and start asking their questions. Alexis?
That was a great presentation. Thank you. My question is, what is the expected, or I guess the life expectancy of the consumables and the cartridges themselves?
So I'm joined with Katie, Mala, and Hamid. I think Mala wants to answer
This is
that.
Mala. Yep, I can answer. I can take that question. So like the microfluidic devices, so they can be sustainable for a while. So I would say more than a year. So we don't have like any problem with that one. So there are like other consumables that we're expecting like 3 to 6 months so that they can be sustainable.
Thank you.
Angelique?
And so you mentioned that the technology would be at a water treatment facility and that the manager would operate the technology and keep track of it and use it as needed?
So right now, the current version is going to be a benchtop unit where they take a water sample from a reservoir, and it's essentially like a gum stick. You put it in the machine, and that's all. Then it'll run the analysis. It'll put the results on the dashboard online. They can pull up it on their phone, on their mobile, or on a computer or laptop in the plant. That can also be accessible to other shareholders who are interested in that. Our long-term vision would be to build something that could be actually taken out into the field and actually tested, but that the current technology is not doesn't allow that, but that's something towards our long-term vision.
Okay. And my other question was, have you guys had software issues in developing the software to track?
No, so right now we have a lab bench prototype, and it's been actually mostly a hardware push from a microfluidics and biosensing and fabrication standpoint. The software is essentially should be the easier part once the hardware works properly.
Chris?
The key components of what you're making here, where are you getting them made, and what are your cost assumptions on those?
So currently we don't have a manufacturer source. We're assuming that the cost to produce the cartridge and the consumables will be around $7.50 for one run. Now, one run will do 2 different toxins at once, microcystis or microcystin and Solantis spiropsin. And then we are planning to have a 50% margin on that, so charge $15 per sample.
And your assumption on that margin, what is your assumption on where you'll go to get that stuff?
So we're talking about doing it either here in North America or in China. It really depends on the supply chain, as well as what people can do with regards to manufacturing the cartridges and the consumables. So it's something we have to really, really explore thoroughly. But it's likely going to be in North America, given that's where our primary target market is.
I'll just make one quick comment. I noticed you talked about moving into the United States and then moving to China. You didn't forget about Canada, did you?
No, so Canada is about 10 times less than the US. And given we're a Canadian company and we're right on the border, it makes sense to focus all our energy and efforts into the US market. But of course, we're going to do Canada as well.
I would just say the North American market and then the Asian market. I think that would be more astute.
Yeah, that's great, Pat. We can definitely change the wording around that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no big deal.
We have time for one more question, maybe two. Go ahead, Chris.
Any other things that could corrode the device or create films that would get in the middle of, hurt your process?
I think Malo Hamid is best to answer that question.
What's that?
Yeah, sure. I can take that question. Can you repeat your question just one more time?
Yeah, are there any other things, corrosion or film or other things that would hurt the ability of your process to work?
So currently, we're just using PDMS-based devices, but in future, when we want to just mass produce them, there are many kind of microfluidic fabrication techniques that we can use to mass produce them. But currently, for just lab test and just making the process, we're using PDMS fabrication.
So the ability of that thing, the life of what you're selling. What's the estimated life of what you're selling is what I'm curious about.
So the life, as I said, so currently it's like a PDMS space for the device. So it's a hardware, so it's like over a year. So I wouldn't just say that it would cause any harm. So actually, I just made some devices back when I was at the Stanford, just leave them for 1 year and students use them after. But later when we would mass produce them, so they're going to probably be based on some glass stuff so that they will be more durable, I would say.
Okay, thanks.
That it?
Go ahead, Akbar.
Okay, so I want to know how accurate are these microfluidic chips? Are they, you get any false positives, false negatives, or anything like that? How accurate are they?
Okay, so I can take that question as well. So as Jason mentioned, so we are based on ELISA. So ELISA is very accurate technique. And we're just miniaturizing and make it rapid inside a chip. So the specificity is very is great. So I wouldn't just, and we're going to test it for a number of non-specific testing. So I would we checked it actually previously for other projects. So compare them with the other ELISA-based techniques like the lab bench techniques. And so we had a very, very good correlations and match. So I wouldn't think that we would have a problem with the accuracy and the specificity of the test. And our goal is go down to the sensitivity compared to other techniques that going to 0.1 microgram per liter that Jason mentioned.
All right. Thank you, judges, and thank you, Blue Line Labs, for your presentation.
Thank you.
If everyone could if all the judges could turn off their mics and turn off their cameras and start heading over to the judges' deliberation room.
Okay, thank you so much, Felicia, and thank you to all of our great presenters today. Such an interesting a bunch of topics we covered there, and certainly learned a whole heck of a lot. So as the judges are deliberating on their own here, and we're determining the winners and all of that. We've got a little bit of time to work with here. So as we await word on who the winners today are, we just wanted to take this opportunity to again say thank you once more to our sponsors, our partners, our judges, and to all of the teams that pitched here today. Every single one of these projects is really, truly very exciting. And it's just so great to hear about them all. But, innovation doesn't start and end with Erie Hack season. I mean, we anxiously await the deliberation, but in the meantime, let's talk more about Erie Hack and more about the Cleveland Water Alliance. Pleased at this point to introduce and welcome Brian Stubbs, President and Executive Director at Cleveland Water Alliance, to answer a couple of questions about how CWA supports innovation for the water industry. So Brian, excited to talk to you. Welcome. Great event here today with Erie Hack.
No, appreciate that, Tony. It's amazing in that every year, or every 2 years, I guess I should say, the quality of the solutions is just getting like higher and higher and higher. So, I saw multiple presentations there that I would have an interest in.
For sure. So let's start with this. Is Erie Hack your guys' only prize-based program to engage innovators?
No, it's our original, and it's kind of got us into that prize-based innovation competition business. But we do also do more industry select open innovation challenges, which also do have dollars attached to them.
So how does Erie Hack kind of differ from CWA's other innovation challenge programs? Like, what kind of solutions have been explored and accelerated by these opportunities?
Sure. Well, Erie Hack in itself is really broad and really big and really undefined, meaning we initially wanted to go out to these communities and have a conversation with them to say, what challenges are you facing? What are you doing to solve them? So it was real intriguing. So, this was in 2016 that we took a team from the NASA Glenn Research Center, and we went to all the communities that you've heard mentioned here, the Detroits, the Buffaloes, the Windsors, the Toledos. The very first session we had was in Toledo to do an ideation session. So we had this really wonderful group from Cleveland's NASA, and we were in this room, and Toledo's it's a big city, but it's not it's not Chicago size. And as we were sitting in the room, starting to go into this path of identifying some challenges, I brought together, people from the wastewater, the drinking water, the county, the city, but I also brought together a bunch of technology folks from different incubators around town. And as we started the conversation, I realized, wow, these people have never met each other, which I found just shocking. So, that kind of began this path of Erie Hack being really broad and really big. Let's bring the entire community together and just tell people to think and dream big. Blue sky, blue ocean ideas. On the counter, our open innovation challenges, we just started this year thanks to a federal, what's known as the Economic Development Administration grant. And these are just very particular, very market oriented. So let me give you the two examples that we did this year. The first is an open innovation challenge that we did in partnership with 6 utilities, starting with Cleveland Water. I don't think it would shock anybody on this web platform today to learn that lead and lead service lines are a major issue. You only have to look at Flint, Michigan on the damage that it can cause to human health and all sorts of big challenges there. And as part of addressing this, every utility in the country is going to be required to first map out 100% of their lead service lines. Now, these lead service lines, Tony, were put in 50, 60, 80, 90, 100 years ago. So you can imagine the records are, it's not like they are today. Not everything's digitized. So we asked Cleveland Water, we said, what if you wake up at 2 a.m. in a cold sweat, what's it over? And they said, lead service line identification. Because, if they know where the lines are, they know how to spend their dollars and get them out of the ground as quickly as possible. Without that, they just have to start digging and digging and digging and realize some of these aren't even the whole pipes, it's solders of different pipes. So, in this case, we said, hey, let's do an open innovation challenge to find interesting technologies that can identify a lead service line without breaking ground. So the challenge is in mid progress right now. We ended up with 6 really promising innovations, and we'll be bringing them into Cleveland to test their innovations here throughout the winter into the spring. And the most promising one will then be partnered with the Cleveland Water crew, and they'll actually go and test this as these crews are actually doing the real digging under who knows what they're going to hit, whether it's concrete, asphalt, some other pipe, we'll see. And then, Tony, the second one that was also really exciting was an open innovation challenge with Moen. For those that don't know, Moen's the biggest plumbing brand by volume in the world, and they're based here in Cuyahoga County, just outside of Cleveland and North Olmsted. And what they asked us about is, we want a low-cost, what's known as a point-of-use sensor to detect certain, contaminants in somebody's home water system. So imagine like a little sensor maybe embedded in your faucet, and if it got a ring because there was, something in there, some emerging contaminant, you'd get an alert on your phone. You'd be like, wow, I need to take care of this. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we've been with these other open innovation challenges. So we did 2 for this year, and for 2022 we're exploring 5 potential topics, so lots of opportunities for innovators to win cash. The prize dollars just keep going up and up, but really for us it's not about the price dollars, it's about what happens next. Can we get these solutions to market? Can we create a business model? Look, the goal here is real simple. We feel that the recipe, or the ingredients, are here for the recipe to turn Cleveland into, a capital of freshwater innovation. We have these great companies, we've got, our Great Lakes, so, let's do some great innovation.
Absolutely. Great stuff there. We're talking with Brian Stubbs, President and Executive Director at Cleveland Water Alliance. Some really important applications there. Let's talk just a little bit about how CWA not only showcases these technologies through these, requests for technologies, if you will, but also how you guys sort of validate all the hard work that's going on in all of these areas. It's really all about supporting these innovators, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. So, what we launched over the last 12 months is really a market-based response to getting these new innovations to market. And we're doing that with a few things in mind. One, these innovations need to be tested, but they can't be tested in a lab. That's just been a barrier to entry for decades within the water sector. Somebody comes up with a great idea, they'll test it somewhere that has nothing to do with a real world scenario, and they say, hey, it works, and we grab it. And this has even happened in Erie Hack one year when we took a open innovation challenge to the next step. In this case, it was a buoy system. We actually installed it with our partners in Sandusky, with the city there and their utilities. And these little bulbs started sinking and getting water in them, and the batteries got wet, and it didn't work. So we really have said, what can we do to, really test these, validate, and demonstrate not only do they work, but also do they work in a way that's of interest to our partners. So, when I brought up the lead service line open innovation challenge, there's a part 2 to that, which is we worked with Cleveland Water, and they were kind enough to actually build us a pipe farm. So on their property, they buried it, all mapped out. They buried all sorts of different pipes, different solders. Some have fluid and water through them, some don't. And these innovations that we're inviting in will actually trial these again with our partners from 6 utilities: Cincinnati, Akron, Cleveland, Conneaut, Sandusky, and Aqua, Ohio. And we'll trial them with these crews with them and get that real-time feedback to say, okay, that worked, but that doesn't make any sense. These innovators can then go back to the lab, fix these, and come back. And so what we call this, Tony, is a test bed. It's our plug and play test bed system. And that's what we're really excited about. That really is kind of laying this groundwork of nothing like this exists right now in North America. So we're becoming this magnet for companies that want to come in, innovators that want to come in and trial these technologies.
Well, it's really interesting, this network of test beds that you guys have here. How does that approach kind of help to accelerate market entry and adoption for these innovator technologies, having these test beds?
Yeah, so well, let me back up one notch and just mention there eventually will be 4 test beds, and we've been kind enough to receive some initial federal funding, as I mentioned, through the U.S. Economic Development Administration. But we got a big kind of boost to our programming through the state of Ohio's most recent budget, where the state's investing an additional $3 million into these test beds. They really see the value. Senator Matt Dolan was really kind of the champion of that. He's like, I had no idea that the water economy was such a big deal. I didn't know that it was bigger and growing faster than biohealth, than advanced manufacturing, than additive manufacturing. So we're looking at standing up what will be 4 test beds eventually. And we're well on our way to having 2 fully operational, a 3rd one next year, and a 4th one shortly after that. The first one's an open water watershed test bed.
Can you hear me, Max?
And the best example I can give for that one is
Can you hear
we've
me,
got
Max?
4. Whoop. Hey, Chris, you need to mute yourself.
There we go. Little it's live quote unquote, right? That happened.
This is our world today, and I love it.
That's
right. That we're making do with the world that is. We'd rather be in person. But just getting back on topic, they're open water watershed test bed, and we've got buoys out all on the lake as an example. Those buoys are serving an active real purpose as a data as a service model for Cleveland Water. But we've been able to bring some companies in and use the data from those to develop things such as a hypoxia early warning system. The next thing is a harmful algal bloom early warning system. The second test bed's immunity. The third is an industrial, so water treatment at the industrial level, something we've got a long history with, here in Cleveland. And the 4th will be a residential commercial. But as I mentioned, as we tie all this in together, Tony, it's really allowing these young innovators to come in and get that real-time feedback, get the customer feedback, get them ready to go to the market. So, there's no second guessing. We know the product works. We know we bench tested it against the best equipment, because that's what, we're doing, is putting all sorts of the best equipment currently available out there to benchmark new innovations with, and then really get them ready, to know how to sell. You heard that in the pitches today. Quite a few judges' questions was like, what's the model? How are you going to market this? We work with these companies to get all that completed, get all that done, even figure out, hey, do you need a manufacturer? Do you need a prototype? We've got partners through Cleveland's own Magnet, or the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And we take it from there. And, I'd be hesitant if I didn't miss, given what you do for your day gig, Tony. A good example of something I'm really excited about is even simple innovation, such as the new Kraken hockey team is using rain harvested water for their ice. So that's just so cool. They call it the greenest ice in hockey.
Well, when you play at Climate Pledge Arena, it's the Kraken do there in Seattle, you certainly have to live up to the name, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Brian Stubbs, President and Executive Director at Cleveland Water Alliance. I don't think the ice at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, for the record, is rain harvested quite yet. So
we don't have that issue here.
Yeah, no, we don't.
We got plenty of water.
Yes, we do. Just, taking a step back here, going pretty broad, just you've described a lot of different ways in which CWA supports these innovators. Just broad strokes, what's kind of next for Cleveland Water Alliance? How can folks stay connected with your organization, and if they'd like to learn more about what you guys do and maybe get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for that question of what's next, we're just developing and investing in this innovation ecosystem. We're working on raising a seed fund so that the next time there's an Erie Hack, we, as the Water Alliance, can actually invest up to $500,000 in equity into these companies. We're going to use that also as a means of capturing exciting technologies and bringing them to Cleveland and having them, emerge into an actual corporate structure here in Cleveland and hire our Clevelanders. And, you know, with hand in hand with that is, you know, we've been developing a pretty interesting investor network throughout the world. So there's just a lot of good access to equity that is in the near term. That entrepreneurial support will be there. We're also really excited. Next summer, we'll move into our new Water Hub Accelerator space in the Midtown neighborhood of Cleveland. So we'll finally actually have our own kind of space within a space. It's going to be in partnership with Magnet, but it allows for something known as hoteling space. So if somebody wants to come in and use the test bed, they can come and, you know, use it for a month and use our offices and have their own dedicated office while they're here. So we're excited about that. You know, we're really growing our connection to manufacturers. You know, we're bringing in a $6 million water quality testing innovation from our partners in South Korea. So we're just pumped about that. They chose Cleveland to trial their new, you know, non-chemical use for water treatment. Why'd they do that? Well, it's because of the work of organizations like us and some really innovative, you know, utilities and others, including the sewer district and Cleveland Water. And then, you know, we're really broadening out the support for research. You know, we think that we can use this as a driver to increase research. A lot of our data being thrown off our test beds to increase research opportunities for, you know, whether it's Case Western or Cleveland State or Kent State, you know, Ohio Sea Grant, and so on. We want to see them be more competitive to bring more research dollars to this region. You know, that again is good for workforce. That's good for, you know, spinning out new companies. You know, so, you know, given all that, go to our website. You can sign up for our newsletters. We have lots of good kind of webinars on all different topics. You know, you can sign up for the newsletter from that perspective. Of course, social media is the world today. So, you know, Twitter and LinkedIn and others are just fabulous for us. So, you know, it's going to be a good year. We're really excited. We've got a lot of support, and you know, we will maybe still get that rain harvesting machine on top of Rocket Mortgage Arena.
Well, I'll make sure the guys down at on the facilities crew are aware of innovation coming their way. We're speaking here with Brian Stubbs, President and Executive Director at Cleveland Water Alliance. As we're waiting, our judges are deliberating right now, waiting for our winners of Erie Hack this year. Let's talk a little bit about Lake Erie, Brian. What makes our local Great Lakes so great?
Well, I mean, it all starts with volume of water. You know, you think of the Great Lakes, that's almost 21% of the world's fresh surface water. And one only needs to look at what's going on in places like California to realize how precious water is. I mean, it's, you know, you go through those cycles, and as you look at the history of the world where water drove the, you know, why Cleveland is Cleveland and, you know, where it is, you know, and then people kind of forgot about water, just like we kind of forgot about infrastructure, you know, and water infrastructure, and realized, oh man, we've got some pipes that we need to replace, you know, and then it becomes this competitive thing. So first and foremost, it's, you know, the fact that we're sitting on just this precious, precious resource that most of the rest of the world doesn't have. And you know, if you just look at what's in front of us right now, water stress is on the rise. And that's, you know, whether that's the water stress as it relates to not enough water in California, whether it's, you know, issues of, you know, hurricanes and things like that in the Gulf. It's just a huge opportunity. We like to say we're really boring from a climate perspective, but that's a really good thing for us. So, you know, it starts with that volume, but then Lake Erie in particular has always been kind of interesting because it's only 2% of that water that flows, you know, through it, but it's 50% of the biodiversity. So 50% of biodiversity means it's the canary in the coal mine. If something's going wrong with the Great Lakes, it starts in Lake Erie. So because of that, we've always had a deep history of, you know, kind of innovations and research and experimentation. And so when we see things like harmful algal blooms hitting Lake Erie, oh, that's an Ohio problem. That's a lake. You know what? They're now starting to happen in all 5 Great Lakes. So it's coming to all of them. It just starts with us. So we look at ourselves as, you know, if you want to know what's going on with the health of the Great Lakes, you start with Lake Erie. And, you know, given that we're not even like, you know, broaching this conversation around, you know, supply chains, and we've got a vibrant port here, and we can actually get shipping to and from Northern Europe and the port of Antwerp. So to me, it's a great asset. And then let's throw in the fact that, a lot of our folks are boaters and we want to see them get in the water. The Foundry and their whole, rowing education program and their kind of school within a school, there's so much to be done here. And, I'm committed over this next couple of years to developing a pilot program called Blue STEM, through the Cleveland Public School System that will create a program that wraps in our Great Lakes and Lake Erie in particular into the education pipeline, but two, starts getting training programs around things like autonomous surface drones, fun things like that kids will be interested in and they'll want to do, and then realize, oh, and by the way, I've got a career for life and it's kind of cool. And I get to use an iPad to drive this thing.
That sounds amazing. Sounds amazing. We're talking here again with President and Executive Director at Cleveland Water Alliance, Brian Stubbs, as we await our judge's decision here on the winners of Erie Hack this year. Now, okay, so Brian, I grew up in Minnesota, land of 10,000 lakes, right? Mm-hmm. So, coming to Cleveland, I've always been around the Great Lakes really growing up. And so I thought it was really cool. I moved here about 6-7 years ago now and have just really enjoyed the lake and getting to, for recreational purposes or just to get out when people come and visit to show off this great resource we have in Lake Erie. What about you? When folks are coming to Cleveland that maybe aren't familiar with the area, what are some of your favorite spots to show off the lake?
So I had this question on this national webinar just the other day, and it was under the, if I'm trying to recruit a company, a water technology company here, what do I take them to, and what do I like to do? And I said, look, it's real simple. It starts with a libation in Ohio City. Then we go over to the Rock and Roll Hall, just see the beauty of all of that. Then I put them on a boat and we go out to the water intakes and see 4 of our buoys out there. And then I have them text the buoys, and those buoys text them back in real time with all sorts of crazy information and scientific things. So for me, it starts there, but come on, anytime you pick one area, you're going to make somebody mad. The city's great. The city's vibrant. It's good food. There's a lot to do. The museum campus is amazing. We have great research institutions. Personally, I love going to a Cavs game whenever possible. And Cuyahoga Valley National Park is tremendous.
Certainly is. Just so many great ways to enjoy this community, to enjoy the environment here in Northeast Ohio. It's a great place, and thanks in large part to all that you guys are doing at Cleveland Water Alliance to help take care of these precious natural resources. So Brian, I think we've got a video coming up, I'm being told right now, but just thank you so much for taking the time. It's a great pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for everything that you and CWA is doing for this community, for this region.
No, thank you, Tony. And, thank you for coming to Cleveland like me. I'm not, a native, and I came here from Chicago, but I am quite happy. And I'm just so also amped about hockey. So I love it.
Well, that's great. We got to get you out to see the Monsters at some point this year. So we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Find folks from Cleveland Water Alliance out there to enjoy some hockey at the field house. So with that, thanks again to Brian Stubbs. Great conversation there with the Cleveland Water Alliance President and Executive Director. Right now, we just want to take this opportunity as the judges continue to deliberate here to again say thank you to all the great folks who had a hand in making today's event possible. Erie Hack, as a reminder, is a program of Cleveland Water Alliance in partnership with local champions at Techtown, Detroit, Mid-Story, Blackstone Launchpad at the University of Buffalo, and We Tech Alliance, and is presented by the First Solar Community Giving Fund of the Greater Toledo Community Foundation and the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. Erie Hack is supported by OHM Advisors, Connecticut, Case Western Reserve University, Leonard Gelfand STEM Center, the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo, Cleveland Metro Parks, the Watershed Stewardship Center, the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation, the Rotary Club of Toledo, and the University at Buffalo Sustainability Office. With that, we're still waiting for the judges who are hard at work right now, deciding on who's going to be the winner of Erie Hack this year. Right now, I'm told, though, we have another video here, so we're going to step away for a moment, play the video, and hopefully before too long, stay with us, everybody. We're going to have some winners to announce for Erie Hack this year. But in terms of the video, guys, take it away. Okay, everybody, it looks like at long last here we've got some winners determined, so welcome back. It's time for our award ceremony. It's the moment we've all been waiting for. We're gonna have to wait just a few minutes more. I have a few more items to get to before we announce the winners. But before we make the big announcement, just want to take one last opportunity to recognize our sponsors and partners who are absolutely critical in these efforts to solve our greatest water challenges. A massive thank you once again to the First Solar Community Giving Fund of the Greater Toledo Community Foundation, the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, our partners at Midtown Detroit, We Tech Alliance, Mid-Story, the University at Buffalo, Blackstone Launchpad, OHM Advisors, Connecticut, Case Western Reserve University, Leonard Gelfand STEM Center, the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo, Cleveland Metro Parks, the Watershed Stewardship Center, the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation, the Rotary Club of Toledo, and the University at Buffalo Sustainability Office. I also want to remind you guys that Erie Hack is about more than just these winners. This competition has cultivated and accelerated countless amazing ideas, forged lasting partnerships, and driven the conversation around the value of our regional water resources. Erie Hack has created a powerful innovation ecosystem throughout the region that promises ecological and economic advancement for all of our communities, and you should be proud of how far each and every one of you guys has come. Before we get to announcing our Erie Hack 2021 winners, we're going to award our mini challenges. So mini challenges are specific water-related issues that sponsoring organizations would like to see addressed with innovative products and solutions. Teams from all stages of the competition were eligible to win our mini challenges. And this year, we're excited to announce that 4 teams will take home prize dollars from the mini challenges. So here they are. All right, drum roll, please. First, the Road Salt IoT Mini Challenge with a prize of $2,500 sponsored by the Cleveland Metro Parks goes to Team Curbing Sediment. Congratulations, guys, winners of the Road Salt IoT Mini Challenge, $2,500. Next, the Data Mining to Support Water Quality Investigations Mini Challenge with a prize of $5,000 from the Rotary Club of Toledo goes to Team Water Warriors. Congratulations to them. I beg your pardon. That's on me. The winner of the Data Mining to Support Water Quality Investigations Mini Challenge, prize of $5,000 from the Rotary Club of Toledo, goes to Team I Love Lake Erie. My fault. Next up, Water Warriors has won the Nutrient Capture and Reuse at the Edge of Field Mini Challenge with a prize of $5,000, also from the Rotary Club of Toledo. So there you go. Water Warriors, you did win, just not that first mini challenge. You did win the Nutrient Capture and Reuse at the Edge of Field Mini Challenge. And finally, the Water Sensor Kit Mini Challenge with a prize of $1,000 from the Cleveland Water Alliance and the GLOW Partnership goes to Team Let's Float Some Sensors on the Lake. Love that team name. There you have it. Those are all of your mini challenge winners. Congratulations to all of our winners: Curbing Sediment, I Love Lake Erie, Water Warriors, and Team Let's Float Some Sensors on the Lake. With no further ado, though, it's time to announce our Erie Hack 2021 winners, the moment you've all been waiting for, the moment these teams have been working toward for months. Let's start with second place. In second place, taking home $18,000, it's Team Agritech, Ohio. Congratulations, our second place winners of $18,000. And here we go, the big moment. Ready? In first place, taking home $30,000 in prize money and support services. The winner is of Erie Hack 2021, Team RNA Power. Congratulations. They are our first place winners. In second place, Agritech, Ohio. So there it is, the big reveal, everybody. Want to say thanks to all of our fantastic judges as well. Chris Anderson, Tiffany Jordan, Alexis Carter, Jess Moyer, Angelique Salazan, Priscilla Deem, and Akbar Tyler. Thanks to the judges. And again, congratulations to the winners. Second place, Agritech, Ohio, and first place, Team RNA Power. Congrats to the winners, to all the teams who have made it this far, for your hard work. And once again, thank you to our sponsors and our partners for making this event possible, and to our judges for volunteering your time to hear all of these impressive ideas. Now, for those winning teams, Agritech Ohio and RNA Power, please stand by for a phone call from cleveland.com immediately following today's event, and Felicia will be in touch with more information and next steps beyond that. So I'm told we're actually going to let the winner speak here. Sorry, late programming note there for you. So we will turn it over, I guess, to the folks from RNA Power to take over and speak on their win here in Erie Hack 2021. So I guess welcome Team RNA Power, and have at it if you're on the call. Maybe not. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I missed the note on that. Oh, do we have them? Team RNA Power, our winners, 2021. Go ahead. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I think my team might be busy pitching. I apologize. I don't know if John Higley can join us, but anyways, I really would like to thank the Cleveland Water Alliance, all the judges, all the mentors, everybody. I think the teams were so good, all of them. And actually, we plan to connect with several of the other RNA teams to work with them. So anyways, I won't take too much time. Sorry, John is probably didn't know he might be busy at a panel or something. It was triple booked today. So just thank you so much. And we know we can make a big difference. The impact can be actually immediate as the 2022 Hemorrhagic Blue season starts, because with the phyla chip of Averostat, we can also do early detection of bacteria, E. coli, and help with the swimming beaches warning systems. So we'll all in. So again, thank you so much.
And thank you to Team RNA Power, our winners of Erie Hack 2021. And congratulations to all the teams just for making it this far and for making this fantastic event centered on innovation what it is. We appreciate it so much. And as we wrap up today's program, we've got a lot of thank yous to hand out. Let's start with the fine folks at Cleveland Water Alliance. Want to say thanks to the CWA President and Executive Director, Brian Stubbs. Great conversation with him while the judges were deliberating. On a personal note, I'd like to thank Felicia Ontoro, the project coordinator for CWA, Sam Martin, the communications manager for Cleveland Water Alliance, and Laura Rankin, the communications coordinator as well. Want to say thank you to Cleveland Mayor-elect Justin Bibb for getting us started today. And again, thanks to all of our sponsors, our partners, our judges, our presenters, and again, congratulations to our winners. This concludes Erie Hack 2021. It was a privilege to be here with you folks. I am Tony Brown, and hopefully we'll see you for a Cleveland Monsters game down at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in the near future. But thanks again to the Cleveland Water Alliance, to all of our presenters. Congratulations to our winners, Team RNA Power, and thank you for being a part of Erie Hack 2021. So long, everybody.